Morning. How are you, man?
Good morning.
We had your
Good.
guy on last week, Stefan Lasor, before we get going. I know that you guys were over at Parkview. You were on the committee that brought down Coach LaForce brought him back down to Baton Rouge. A nice hire for the Eagles.
Pretty impressive. Younger guy that did it at the top level. Has been coaching for 8 years since his pro career kind of, fizzled out and everything. And, coming back home, he's really excited about coming down here and getting back into this ecosystem, which is football crazy. It's basketball country up there, and it's basketball country here for a moment right now. But, he's a heck of a guy to sit in a room with. I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. Chad Durbin joining us here. All right, Durbs, a lot of people excited about this LSU baseball team, obviously with their preseason ranking 1 or 2, no matter what poll you look at. But after the first weekend of action, we heard all about these freshman arms. They still haven't rolled them all out, but having a chance to see what they had here early on, what was your impressions?
Well, yeah, I'd seen these guys throw the last couple of years in the select circuit or the summer ball circuit, and their bodies look like the guys that are leaving the program in their third and fourth years. They're bigger. They look the part. Henry's another guy that's 6'4", creeping up on 6'5", with shoulders as wide as your car, and throws the ball well. Command of his fastball, pounds his own. Good feel for a changeup, and has a pretty good breaking ball. And I think you saw that with Hill and Marceau and the rest of these guys. I mean, the high tide floats all boats. I think when you go out and compete at those levels in summer ball, you're facing SEC caliber hitters, and you need polish. You polish yourself because of the failure that it provides, which is a good thing for any growth. You're going to see some pretty competitive arms, and you'll see guys like Eric Walker and some other guys that have been there. It's going to raise them up. They're going to have to go out and be just a little bit more efficient sooner than they maybe had to be otherwise. So it's great for LSU baseball. You
mentioned Landon Marceau, and there's a great article this morning over at NOLA.com authored by Brody Miller on Marceau and his first outing for LSU, and learned a lot about the kid out of Destrehan and just how much he's passionate about the game. He passed on $1.5 million from Kansas City, who took him out of high school. He loves LSU. He was upset with his debut on Saturday, Derbs, because he walked 3 batters.
Good.
Yeah, right. He seems like he's a guy that's made for it. When you see him pitch, what are the mechanics, the tools that stick out from him?
No, I guess it's that look in his eye that he doesn't matter who's swinging that bat, and he hasn't faced the caliber thus far that will look right back at him the same way, meaning in an LSU uniform. But high quality stuff. I mean, you don't get drafted and offered that kind of money without it. He's a guy that can continue to push and make a guy like Pulmonary comfortable with saying, all right, if Friday night it gets shaky, we've got arms. The arms race right now, LSU's winning on that freshman level at the SEC level, in my opinion. And that helps a guy like Paul say, you know what, Zach, if it isn't going right, that's not a bad thing. We can put you at the back end, and now we've shortened games to 6 innings. And now these freshmen go out and just dominate for 5. We plug the 6, and we close for the last 3. But if Zach steps up his game, it means that guys like Cole Henry, and you'll see his stuff tonight, might be able to throw in the 7th or 8th on the weekend. So this gives LSU huge flexibility in the way they want to attack the schedule. And going back to Marceau or Hill, who reminds me of a little bit of like an Edwin Jackson, who's pitched for a long time in the big leagues. He's throwing no-hitters at the top level. I mean, just electric stuff, and you'll see it tonight. Cole's competitive like that. He was offered money, and chose to go to LSU and not get drafted at all. He communicated well with the club. So there are a lot of guys that should be in pro ball that are pitching for LSU right now, and that's a fun part of the season to be the beginning of this, watching these guys come out and do what they would do at that pro level.
Nothing says baseball season like having Chad Durbin back on, former World Series champ. Chad, I miss you so much. Welcome back. I'm going to ask you the question that I've asked all of our baseball guys the last couple days. What was your interpretation of Hess's performance, and kind of like how should fans be approaching Hess in that Friday night role from here out?
Well, obviously experience, he has it, and that's a lot of the Friday night run, is can you handle the pressure of being on the road in the SEC on Friday night? And he can. Is he able to show us over the next 4 or 5 starts what he's capable of doing? Like I said, I don't know that they're going to have as much patience as they may have had if we didn't have these arms waiting behind them. But I've always liked him in the pen. It does not, and I've tried not to say that a whole lot because I've been in both, and I hated it when guys said, well, I mean, you were a failed starter. I mean, not really. I was just better at one than the other. And the truth is, looking back on it, I was a failed starter. But it still hurts to hear it. And he's still 20, 21, and you don't want to go that route with these guys. And they hear stuff, and you want someone like him to have confidence at this point and go out there and know, hey, man, the fans have my back, my team has my back, and the coaching staff has my back. And he's got the stuff to go out there. But, like I said, failed starter, it doesn't mean you're a failed pitcher. It might mean that you're just built different for the back end. Putting on the uni every day and tightening up the cleats and knowing that I might get to pitch every day was more my mentality as a former position player. It just fit me better. I was in it more intense. I got to go to work differently, and it just worked for me. And it doesn't mean that that's for everybody, but they do have the luxury of knowing that they've got guys that can pitch in the SEC behind them. But again, the experience and the mentality, a lot of times that matters more than your stuff. You go out there and that Friday night lights and Saturday night lights, man, it tends to test the best of arms. And if you can't handle it mentally and emotionally, it doesn't matter how good you are.
Hey, Chad, BG Lanois got in the huddle earlier, and he wanted to know who hit the longest home run off of you.
I feel like you've answered this, too, on live radio.
And I think because I gave up so many, it changes. It's a fluid, fluid. I think 2 guys came to mind. I was listening earlier, and immediately Adam Dunn came to mind. He had a cutter that didn't cut into the third deck at Citizens Bank. And early in my career, Frank Thomas hit one that off the bat, I was like, okay, maybe double in the gap. No, it went over all the fountains and over the berm and almost hit like a truck on the interstate. I'm being a little facetious, but it was crushed. And big Frank Thomas was he looked like a tight end running down the field swinging a bat. So, those are the 2 that came to mind. But if I went back over the 100+ that I gave up, there's probably a couple more in there that were hit pretty well.
Chad, do you know, like as a pitcher, do you know when it leaves your hand, like, oh, God, I'm in trouble?
You're hoping that the guy doesn't swing at it when it leaves your hand. You missed. And a lot of times you can see where it hits on the bat. If there's about 3.5 inches between the end of the barrel and the end of the bat and where that sweet spot starts, and then there's label behind it. If it hits in the right spot, you can see it when it hits the bat. And if it has the right trajectory, you and the umpire make eye contact, like, hey, I need a ball as soon as possible because it's my blankie, makes me feel good. And they usually make you wait earlier in your career. They make you squirm, but when you're older, a little bit of a veteran presence out there.
Flip it out to you?
No.
Yeah.
Just give me the ball.
Yeah, just give me the ball, man. All right, Bryce Harper and Manny Machado are unsigned right now. Is that surprising to you?
It is surprising. It was a slow off season as far as all that's concerned. I think the era of 10-year contracts, they're trying to end it, meaning either the clubs or the agencies. I mean, there's 20 guys out there, and they're only represented by 4 different agents. Right now, the main free agents that are out there, and I don't know if it's the agents that are a cause or whether it's MLB on the ownership side pumping the brakes individually, or maybe they're talking a little bit. Who knows on the collusion side? I don't know, but I really feel like it's bad for baseball for these guys not to be in spring training, for these guys not to have the security that they deserve after the performance they put out there. I know that there are big players in place. I mean, we're talking some of the big teams, Yankees, Philly, some big markets. And but from what I understand behind the scenes from the players is all the media coverage is different than the reality. The reality is they aren't getting tons of offers. They aren't having a ton of dialogue with teams. It's quiet, and that's bad. And that's why things aren't happening. But having Bryce Harper not in a uniform right now, having Manny Machado not in a uniform right now, Keiko, all these different guys, they're guys that need to be marketed for baseball, and they're not even on a team right now. So It's disappointing. I think it's just a cycle we're in. It stinks, but this stuff like this happens, and then the PA, meaning the Players Association on the player side, and the commissioner's office, they get together and they figure it out. So sometimes it's good to have bad things like this happen because it expedites the process.
I got 45 seconds. MLB.com ranked every player in the bigs. They got Alex Bregman, a top 10 player. What do you expect from him this year?
I expect a lot of the same. He is in love with baseball as much as anybody I've ever seen. He continues to exceed expectations for fans, maybe even for himself. He's on the right team to continue to succeed because you have to pitch to somebody, and he's still one of those guys where you got to pick it. It might be him. So I expect him to continue to be a lightning rod in the media. He does a good job with regards to Twitter and Instagram and everything else. I don't follow anybody. I don't have any of that stuff, but I know he does it, and YouTube channels and all that stuff. Exciting player.
Looking forward to the weekly, man. Thanks for the info this morning.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.